My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. All right, something a little bit different for you guys today. This is the Timex Opulence, Celestial Opulence watch today, and this is a mechanical watch from Timex. Now, Timex is on a bit of a tear with mechanicals, and they aren't limiting to men's models. They have quite a few mechanical models for women as well. I think the categorization of watches between men and women is sort of a false dichotomy. If you like any of the watches they have on the site, I say rock them regardless of what category that Timex is placing them in. Nevertheless, Timex is seeming to expand their women's mechanical line, and this is one of the newer watches in that lineup. So this one I actually got for my wife for her birthday, and I figured I would give it a review just in case you are interested in this watch because it is a very interesting design, or maybe you want to get this as a gift for someone. So as usual, we'll do pros, cons, and then if I think this watch is worth the money. Interesting tidbit, only less than 5% of my views come from subscribers. So if you like the content of this channel, I would love if you would subscribe. It would really help me out. All right, thank you. Let's get into the review. So starting with the case, it's 38 millimeters in diameter. It's 45 millimeters lug to lug. It's 13 millimeters thick, but you can see a large portion of that is that domed mineral crystal. And then it has an 18 millimeter lugged width. The case is all high polish and it's plated with this gold color material. And the lugs do have a nice curve down, which helps with comfort during wear. So the watch comes supplied on this 18 millimeter leather strap. It does taper down to 16 millimeters at the end, and it is secured with a pin and buckle. It's signed with Timex, and they use the same gold plating, which is nice attention to detail. There's this one other interesting thing about this strap. They put the same kind of little star logo. It's punched into the strap. Kind of different, kind of interesting, but it does match with the indices at the 12, 3, 6, and 9. So kind of cool. I've never seen anything like that on a strap, but just makes this watch a little bit different overall. Flipping it over, you see we have a screw-in exhibition case back. We have some information around the edges, automatic movement, stainless steel, water resistant to 50 meters. Now, this is powered by a Miyota 8000 series, and you see you actually get a little bit of decoration on there. There's some Geneva striping on that main plate, and then the rotor is skeletonized. The one downside, and you're seeing the watch do it right now, is Miyota movements, as far as I know, only wind in one direction. So they can free spin in that other direction. That doesn't add power to the watch. And you will hear that. It's kind of just this kind of annoying rotor noise that goes whoosh, 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 whoosh. And so a lot of people don't like that about Timex movements. But this is a reliable movement. I'm glad to see they used a Miyota in this one instead of a Seagull movement. And I like that they did the exhibition case back. And you do actually have a skeletonized rotor, which is kind of a cool detail. You can see kind of more what's going on underneath the watch. And I think exhibition case backs are always good on mechanical watches, just so you can kind of connect with the watch a little bit more by being able to see the movement of the watch. Now, I was under the impression that I'm actually not sure which series this is because this movement actually does hand wind, so you can wind it by hand to add power to it, and it also hacks. So two really nice features. I love hand winding and hacking on a watch. So I'm not exactly sure which Miyota this is. It's not a 9000 series because that has a higher vibration per hour rate, but I think it's an 8000 series. I honestly wasn't familiar with one that hand winds and hacks as well. A lot of them hand wind but don't hack, so I like that they use this movement that has hacking in it as well. Now the crown is signed with that same little star, same kind of motif that's on the strap, and it's on the indices. It's a little bit small for hand winding. I would like it to be a little bit bigger, but to be honest, you don't have to hand wind this watch very often. You can just give it like 5 or 6 turns to get it going, and then the automatic rotor is going to wind it the rest of the way. The crystal is this great domed mineral crystal. Look at how big that crystal is. I want to say it's like 1.5 to 2 millimeters thick. And it just has this great curve, and it matches the curve profile of this. You can see the side of the case kind of slants, and then it's taken over right into the curve of the dome of the crystal. And it just is, it's a really alluring effect overall. I love dome crystals on watches. You get kind of cool distortions from the side here, and overall just kind of gives it that vintage retro styling. Now this is only in mineral glass, and when they're domed like this, you're a lot more likely to scratch them. So that is the major downside of a domed mineral crystal, but I think overall just the vintage charm that it gives the watch, I like that they use the dome crystal here. but I think it's the dial that's the real star of the show on this watch. You can see in the middle, there's that star field, and they did something interesting. The Timex is actually printed on the crystal itself. It's not printed on the dial. I think they did that just to preserve that star field in the middle there without having the brand name kind of on that area. And it really has some dimensionality to it. It almost looks like three-dimensional. And then breaking that up, you have basically kind of a flat chapter ring almost, where they've applied the indices. In keeping with the celestial kind of night sky theme, we have stars at the 3, 6, 9, and 12. And then we have things that kind of look like phases of the moon at the rest of the hour indices. And then we have an open heart that is a half moon. So overall, just a really cool night sky theme on this watch that I think has been executed really well. And then I like what they did with the hands. They are gabled, so they'll catch light on one half and then the other. So they do catch light very well, and you can see the star indices also catch a lot of cool reflections from these studio lights. And then there's a nice long minute and hour hand. The hour hand kind of terminates at the edge of the star field, which I like, and then the minute hand is long enough that it is covering the indices. The second hand has this really cool counterbalance, this little circle that I like, and I would like to see the second hand be a slightly longer, but that's probably one of my only pet peeve about the hands on this particular watch. And there's no loom on this watch to speak of, so we won't have a loom shot, but that's okay for this kind of contemporary, kind of more dressy style watch. I think it's okay for it not to have loom. So here it is on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. It's a great size, 38 millimeters, just kind of that middle of the road, kind of works on smaller wrists and larger wrists. 45 millimeter lug to lug, it's quite short, and then you can see that strap. Looks pretty good overall. I would probably maybe rock this, borrow it from the wife and rock it one day. I really like the whole kind of night sky theme on this one. So let me pop it on the Timegrapher and then we'll do pros and cons. And there it is on the Timegrapher. Now I'm guessing on the lift angle. I'm not 100% sure what the lift, I'm not sure which Miyota this is, so I'm not sure what the lift angle is, but just kind of wanted to show you the rate. It's kind of hovering between plus 11, plus 12, plus 13 seconds a day, which, you know, that's okay. This is a new watch. Watches tend to run a little bit fast when they're newer, and then they slow down a little bit over time. And I generally like my watches to run a little fast, much easier to bleed off a few seconds to maintain accuracy. Then if a watch is running slow, you kind of have to adjust the minute hand. So not too bad performance out of this Miyota. So pros and cons then. Pros, this is a very fun mechanical piece, and it's a great size at 38 millimeters. It's going to look good on a lot of wrists. And secondly, they used a Miyota movement, which I do prefer to a Seagull movement, especially at this price point. The only con I really have is twofold. First, the rotor noise is an issue on these Miyota movements. The rotor only winds in one direction, so it will free spin in the other direction and make that telltale rotor noise sound, and a lot of people don't like that sound. I know my wife, when I gave her this watch, was complaining about what is this noise it's making, and I kind of had to explain how the rotor works to her, and she's not a fan of the rotor noise. So keep that in mind. This one is noisy. And then two, I think the price. So this leads me right into, is it worth the money? I think Timex mechanicals are a bit too expensive at MSRP to represent real value for money. I feel like you're paying a premium to have Timex on the dial. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Timex is a historically significant brand, and the fact that they are making mechanical watches again is really great. So if you like the style of one of their watches, I would say go for it. But for comparison, this watch is basically on par with an Orient Bambino. I mean, it's a hacking, hand-winding movement with a domed crystal. I mean, this is very similar to a lot of the Bambinos, and those can be had for about $100 to $120. Thus, this watch's MSRP is $250, so I just don't think it represents a good value. Now, if you really want one of these, all the Timex watches, not always the mechanicals, you got to watch for the right sale, but they do go on sale. They do go on sale quite often. So if you have your heart set on one, I would just wait for a really good sale and go for it then, because with the sale, the prices on these watches are coming more into reasonable territory, in my humble opinion. So there you have it, the Timex Celestial Opulence. Let me know what you guys think about this watch in the comments. Do you like it? Do you hate it? And I will look for you next time. As always, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe. And if you like the content of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much. All right, this is Jason, and you've been watching Just Watches. I will see you next time.